around valuations of players in positioning because of that dynamic that could be that precedent that could be set for future years to come is going to create it's going to have interesting decisions. Like how deep do you think Caleb Downs would be drafted? Even though this class isn't that talented, and even though this class isn't really chock full of edge rushers that are blue chip like they usually could be. They aren't chock full of quarterbacks that are blue chip prospects like they could be. That those players that are usually taken in the top end of the round, the top chunk of the first round, those players are not this class just doesn't have them. And I think when you look to the Giants, who need some of those players, who need a cornerback, they have Paulson Adebo and Greg Newsome as their starting cornerbacks, and they may need an interior defensive pass rusher, or they may need help on the offensive line. When those players aren't available, they might be forced to look into positions that are not so valuable and that they don't really, particularly need. That's why you have the rumors about the Jeremiah Loves. That's why you have the rumors about the Sonny Styles, all those guys. It's intriguing to me. And I'm definitely going to make some predictions on what the Giants are officially going to do. Let's say, the next in the the next second leg of the show. But I want to focus now on the options that they have come Thursday. It's in about 3 days, come Thursday. So they have the 5th and the 10th pick. And before they traded Dexter Lawrence, a lot of the talk around the Giants were, okay, you have the 5th pick. You only have the 37th pick. You don't have premium prospect. There's not a lot of premium prospects at positions of need at the top of the draft. So it would make sense to trade down into the 9 to 10 range. Maybe Mansur Delane falls. Maybe you could take the guard from Penn State. Maybe Maui Noah falls to you. All those options are interesting, but with the 10th pick being added on to the rotation that the Giants have, trading back, the option to trade back is kind of withered away just a little bit. And I don't want to let go of that option just yet, but it seems like the Giants are kind of looking to stick and pick one of these top players. And I don't blame them. The 10th pick adds the flexibility they need, but I'm interested to see if maybe you could trade into the teens now instead of being forced to, trade back to the 9 and 10 range. Maybe you could trade back to 15, 16, pick up a second maybe, so you could add another, interior defensive pass rusher, or add the cornerback that you need, or maybe even if you really want to add a guard. I think all those issues are prevalent, but I think they're getting kind of pushed into this because they didn't really bring in enough guys to kind of fill the holes in the roster. I said this, I don't want to be a dead horse, but I said that I wanted them to maybe to bring in the free agents to where they're not in a position where you have more holes than you have premium picks. Even with the compensatory pick they added, they only have 3, including the 10th pick, 3 top 100 picks this year. And 2 of them are in the top 10, which is great. But you have more than 3, holes on your roster. You need if we're looking at this team right now, excluding free agents that they're looking to sign, you need 2 interior defensive linemen at the very least. Honestly, I'd really like to pick another corner. You'd also need a guard. You don't want Daniel Falele starting for you, and you could use another wide receiver. You have 5 or 6 players that you need, 5 positions, 6 players that you need, and you have 3 premium picks. The math isn't really adding up for you. Jordan Renan this week, he did say that they're signing DJ Reader to the team, but that's going to be after the draft, so it doesn't affect the compensatory picks, which that's a fine signing. But even with DJ Reader on your team, your like interior pass rush duo is going to be Reader and Darius Alexander or Sebastian Joseph Day. That's the two you're looking at, and that's close to one of the worst interior pass rush duos in the league, especially if you're running that's close to like the worst. I don't think anybody really rivals it, and so that means you're probably gonna have to turn to the draft to look to prospect you need. Or maybe you could bring in another guy during training. See, there's not a lot of directions you could go to directly improve your defensive tackle rotation, or maybe even the other positions of need on this team. And so I think the Giants are in a little bit of a bind right now because you're not gonna fill every hole on your team. You're not gonna make everything better. You're gonna have to pick and choose which ones you think would help the team the most. The issue with that, though, is the draft isn't really talented in that regard. If we look at the people, the players or the positions that are the strongest in the draft, especially at the top where the Giants have, a couple of picks, there's no real trademark defensive tackle. There's no Quinnen Williams. There's no Jalen Carter level prospect. You more so are looking down the board for a guy maybe like Caleb Banks, all these other guys, and while Caleb Banks, that's going to be a good pick, that's not going to transform your interior defensive line deal. Even with Dexter Lawrence last year, as good as he was, despite having a down year, you still had one of the worst run defenses in the league. This is going to be a long process that I don't know if they could really fix, despite the fact that getting the 10th overall pick is pretty cool. Yeah. Interesting week for the Giants. It's going to be interesting for them. I'm actually despite the fact that I've kind of been dunking on them a little bit, it's going to be interesting how they operate around, I guess, these chasms in their roster. I'll say this. I would prefer some kind of trade back, even though they do have the 10th pick. I think even with the extra pick added on to your, I guess, repertoire of picks that you have this season, you still need at least a couple of mid-round picks to supplement these very bad areas of your roster. And I don't want to say it's mandatory for me, but it's kind of where do you go if you're starting Daniel Falele? Where are you going this season if you have Deonte Banks as your third corner? It's just interesting to me how they'll operate this. I will say this, despite the fact that we lost Dexter Lawrence, despite the fact that we lost a big piece in the middle of our defensive line, the addition of the 10th overall pick gives the Giants a lot more options that they simply did not have before. And I think that fact will, in the long run, make them better if they could utilize it right. In the draft, they have a lot of options and they have a lot of areas that they could go to, especially depending on how the board ends out. I'm going to cover that in the mock draft, probably after these underwriting announcements. Let me grab these. The recipes have been submitted for 1077 The Bronx first ever Build the Ultimate Bronkwich contest. The culinary team at Ryder Dining Services has evaluated each recipe in their test kitchen and have chosen this semester's Magnificent 7. Go to 1077thebronx.com/build-a-bronkwich recipes to see which bronkwich made it into our lunch bag. Then go to the Instagram at 1077thebronx.com to watch, like, and comment on 3 and the Build the Ultimate Bronkwich finale on Tuesday, April 28th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. inside Cranberries and Muller's Pub. We'll be back with more What's Next Sports after these underwriting announcements on your 3-time 2026 Intercollegiate Broadcasting System Media Award winner, 107.7 The Bronx.
And Prometheus was punished for stealing fire from the gods. Epimetheus unleashed misery upon
So, as you guys know, This week on Thursday is the draft. Okay, big week for everybody. Big week for all the NFL teams. Big week for the Giants and the Jets, who now after this weekend both have 2 picks inside the top 10. No, 2 picks inside the top 16, the top half of the first round. So both these teams are in a rebuild currently. Both have some pretty interesting rumors circling around them and pretty interesting decisions to make. And they've both had a pretty interesting offseason. So I will probably be, I'll be picking. I'm doing a mock draft. I'm picking for the Jets at number 2, Giants at number 5, Giants at number 10, and the Jets at number 16. Very interesting. I haven't talked about the Jets a lot, but they at the second pick, everything's kind of set in stone for them, but things get a little bit weird when you get to 16. That's when the doors kind of open up for them. So at the second pick right now for the Jets, it is either between David Bailey and Arvell Reese. I have very differing opinions on the two, but we'll get to that later. And at 16, they have an option between a lot of different positions, aside from pick 2, which is just edge for them. So they could go wide receiver if one of them drops. There's rumors about them selecting Omar Cooper Jr. and Mekhi Lemon. If he probably won't drop that far. It all really depends on how the board kind of sets up, but the Jets need a lot, especially not especially, but arguably on the defensive side of the ball, despite the strides they've made in free agency. And on the offensive side of the ball, they could use a wide receiver 2 behind Garrett Wilson. They could use some help on the offensive line. They could use a lot of different things. And they're also kind of in the market for a quarterback with Ty Simpson, maybe Carson Beck. There's some talk about him. Drew Aller, who, he has some good potential. He has some good measurables. So the Jets have a lot of directions to go, not just in the first round with number 16, but even outside of it in the second round with I think they have a lot of they have 2 second round picks inside the top 10 of the second round. It is 33 and 44, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 33 and 44. But we should kick it off. The first pick is, it's obviously going to be, it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. We know this. That's you could bet like thousands on that, and you'll probably get a good return on it. It's the top quarterback off the board usually goes first overall just because of the importance of the position. The Jets are just out of reach of Mendoza. Even though, they would have definitely picked him if he was available. But behind that is usually a batch of edge rushers. And what's interesting with this batch of edge rushers is that there's 3, right? There's 3 main ones that are near the top of this circuit. It's Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, and David Bailey. Those are the three main ones. Then after you get into guys like Akeem Mesidor, all those guys. But those are the 3 that are, on the same tier, considered on the same tier from the rest, by the league. The thing with those people, it's not completely unorthodox for a batch of edge rushers to be considered under the top quarterback like it is this year with Mendoza, but it's a little bit different this year because these guys aren't blue chip prospects like they usually are, which kind of muddies up the water. Like all of these 3 players have some serious concerns centering around them. If you look at Arvell Reese, despite the fact that he is an athletic freak of nature, he's a tweener. So he played linebacker and he's trying to convert to edge rusher, and he's pretty raw at rushing the passer straight on. Ruben Bain, his measurables are a little bit low. He has some legal issues. He's just a big question mark overall. And David Bailey, I don't like David Bailey at 2 for the Jets, but like David Bailey, I just don't think he's that good, really. And he's a good prospect, but he has some serious holes in his game. Like he's mainly a speed rusher, but he doesn't really have as much bend as I'd like him to. Against the run, he's not that good. And like, despite the fact that he's the most, I guess you could say, normal top prospect, when you look at Arvel Reese, who's just learning how to be an edge rusher, and Ruben Bain, who's, I guess, kind of has an amalgamation of legal troubles and, you know, concerns and question marks about him. David Bailey is viewed as the safest prospect because he doesn't have these outlandish and insane, like untypical negative aspects to him, like or question marks around him, like Reese and Bain do. That being said, I don't think he has the ceiling of either Reese or Bain. I don't think he's, you know, I don't think he has the floor of Bain really. When even despite his short arms, I think Bain is like a much better prospect than him, and I think Reese's athleticism and overall ability to play both linebacker and edge just outclasses whatever ability Bailey may have. Despite the fact that Bailey is the most prototypical option, I think Reese should be picked by the Jets here, which I'm gonna pick him at 2, obviously. And I think, on Thursday, if they pick Bailey, I'm not gonna be really happy with that. I think, like, I don't think Bailey is like a terrible prospect, but I think he's kind of getting pushed up into this top 2 discussion because this class is so weird. Because the Arvel Reeses and the Ruben Bain prospects have these giant, like, concerns with them in their translation into the NFL. I think as a prospect, he falls around the mid-first round. And I think picking him at 2 when you have Arvel Reese, who has a much higher ceiling than him, is a little bit ridiculous to me. So, yeah, I'll pick him at 2. That's who I'm going to draft for the Jets. And I think they get their, you know, linebacker of the future, a guy who could line next to Will McDonald, and a guy who has a linebacker experience and could actually defend the run, unlike, you know, Will McDonald. Okay. Now at 5, oh my God, interesting. At 5, and the it's kind of hard to explain, but the picks that are not being automated, that are not being picked by me, they're automated by the site. So at 3, Sonny Styles gets selected, which I don't know how realistic that is. And at 4, David Bailey gets selected. So we'll talk about Sonny Styles a little bit because, you know, the Giants are in the market for him and the linebacker. I think I really like Sonny Styles. But much like Caleb Downs and much like Jeremiah Love, who is available right now, he just doesn't play a position that's very valuable. And that's why a guy like Arvel Reese and David Bailey, despite being worse players, were kind of picked or considered ahead of him. Sonny Styles is probably around the top 4 or 5 players in the draft. But the problem with him is that linebacker isn't that valuable. Like a drop down linebacker isn't that valuable in the NFL. So they'd probably take a chance more on Arvel Reese. The Jets, at least, would take a chance more on Arvel Reese, despite the fact that he plays, that he's not as good of a raw player than Sonny Styles. And that's kind of the concern we look at when we're reviewing the Giants right here. And when we look at Jeremiah Love, the players on the board, which is Jeremiah Love, Ruben Bain, Francis Mawinoa, and Caleb Downs, and Mansour Delane. When we look at all these players available, you have to there's like 2 paths you're going down. Are you going to go down the more valuable position but less talented player, or are you looking down the more talented player and less valuable position? Jeremiah Love, who's at the top of the board, is heavily rumored to the Giants. And I mean, I feel like if he's on the board and Sonny Styles is not, the Giants might take him. But guys like Mansour Delane, who I'm going to point out specifically here, plays cornerback, a position which they do need. They need cornerback a lot more than they need running back because they have Cam Scadaboo. But Mansour Delane is not as good as a player as Jeremiah Love, and that's when that's where the split is. The thing with that, I guess, the 2 paths analogy I made before, with the acquisition of the 10th pick, the Giants could pick both directions. That's what I think is so special about gaining the 10th pick and trading away Dexter Lawrence, as bad as that might be, for, I guess, a top 10 pick. Because I pointed out Jeremiah Love, Francis Mauigoa, Caleb Downs, Minnesota Lane. Instead of picking one of these guys, or one guy that is more talented but is less valuable, like Caleb Downs or Jeremiah Love, they could pick one of the guys, wait till 10, and pick maybe a more responsible pick in Minnesota Lane or Francis Mauigoa if any of them are available. So here's what I'll do right now. I will select Jeremiah Love for the Giants. That's who I'm going with. I don't know if I'd like this, like, specifically. Like, I really like Cam Scatterbo. I really like Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy. I think they're probably a top running back duo in the league. I don't know if I'd 100% get behind them picking Jeremiah Love, but they are heavily rumored to love Jeremiah Love. This new, I don't want to say this new regime because Joe Schoen is still there, but it's basically a new regime under Harbaugh. This new regime did not draft either Cam Scatterbo or Tyrone Tracy, and the Giants have raved about Jeremiah Love throughout the entire draft process. They offered a contract to Kenneth Walker, if any of you guys remember that, and they were heavy in the running back market in free agency while they had a plethora of other needs on the roster. Jeremiah Love is my pick at 5 here. I think that's the most realistic option for the Giants. If Jeremiah Love isn't taken, I think behind that is going to be Caleb Downs. I don't think there's really a question on if either of those are taken from the Giants by the Giants. Okay, at 6. Okay. Interesting. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. Wow. So from 6 through 10, this is what happened. Francis Mauigoa went 6. Ruben Bain went 7. Sorry. Ruben Bain went 7. Carnell Tate went 8. And Minnesota Lane went 9. Those are pretty standard picks. That's something I would expect. But what that does leave Caleb Downs, Spencer Fano, and I think it leaves Jordan Tyson and Olave Vega Ione. So those are all options for the Giants, but I did talk a lot about how they have different paths to choose from. The problem with that a little bit is that all the players that were on the more responsible position of need path, they did get picked. Francis Mauigoa got picked. Minnesota Lane got picked. And the only options that are realistic for teams that I guess for the Giants, if they want to address a position of need, is Spencer Fano and Jordan Tyson. I will say this though. Jordan Tyson has gotten a lot of buzz from the Giants this week. If you don't know, they had dinner with him. They had a top 30 visit with him, and I think they had a workout with him too. Jordan Tyson to the Giants has gotten a lot of buzz at 10. And I think that's the only player that could potentially rival Caleb Downs, who's, available right now in this pretend scenario. This is really tough, honestly, because John Harbaugh has shown his love for Caleb Downs throughout the draft process. And Jordan Tyson has only very recently, I guess you could say, got a little bit of buzz from the Giants. But the thing is, he's been falling down the draft boards all throughout the offseason solely because of his injury problems and his injury history, despite the fact that I think, and a lot of people think, he has the highest potential for anybody in the draft at the wide receiver position. But I just have a really tough time imagining a guy that John Harbaugh has raved over, and a guy that John Harbaugh has expressed interest in all throughout the draft process, in Caleb Downs. I have such a hard time imagining him just passing on that, despite the fact that, this is tough. This is really tough. Oh, wow. I might get crazy and go Jordan Tyson, honestly. It's interesting because I might go Jordan Tyson despite the fact that Caleb Downs has gotten so much buzz from the Giants. Because here's the thing, I just talked about how the Giants have the opportunity to go down both paths this offseason and pick one player that may not be traditionally as valuable, but at the same time pick a player that is a position of value like a wide receiver is. And with Malik Neighbors being kind of a question mark this season, I could see Tyson being an option. I will say having Malik Neighbors come off a torn ACL and then bring in like the most injury prone top wide receiver prospect we've seen in a while. That is not like, I understand the risk in that, but oh my God, this is so tough, dude. Honestly, if the Giants end up in this position, which is very likely, I don't really know if there's an option on, what direction they'd go to. I would say, here's what I'd say. I would say that if Jordan Tyson falls far enough, the Giants, I don't want to say, I don't know if the Giants decide not to pick at 5 and they trade back into the teens, I feel like it's Jordan Tyson range. But I think it's just the fact that they picked I picked Jeremiah Love with the 5th pick, and he's not that valuable of a prospect. I feel like I have to go defense here with one of the top 2 picks, and I'm gonna pick Caleb Downs for the Giants at 10. Okay. Yep. Okay, here we go. We're going to switch to the Jets now at pick 16. This is the second to last pick of this mock draft, and it's right on time too. They have a couple of options. I will say, let me tell you the people who got picked. Let me do that. Okay, after we picked Caleb Downs at 10, Monroe Freeling got picked by the Dolphins. Olivega Ione got picked by the Cowboys. Makai Lemon, somebody who I was looking at for the Jets at 16, he got picked at 13 by the Rams. Spencer Fano got picked at 14 by the Ravens, and Gerard McCoy got picked at 15. The cornerback, another guy I was looking at for the Jets, by the Buccaneers. I think this is pretty obvious here. I will say, they're going for wide receiver. I'll spoil it. They're going for wide receiver. The only question is, are they going for Omar Cooper Jr. or will they go for Jordan Tyson? Listen. I said a lot of good things about Jordan Tyson when the 10th pick came up, but the Jets have been heavy on Omar Cooper Jr., and that's why I'm kind of leaning there. I'm leaning there just a little bit, but Jordan Tyson's ceiling is way too high for me to imagine the Jets just passing on him like that, despite the fact that they might like Omar Cooper Jr. A little bit more. So I'm gonna go with the obvious pick here. I'm gonna pick Jordan Tyson with the 16th pick, and yep. That's gonna be the draft so far. I could go to 33 and 37. I might do that, but we're kind of running out of time here for the second leg of the show. We got to go to underwriting announcements. Let's do that for sure. With over 750,000 views over the last 90 days, our social media team is popping. Be a part of the trend. Follow 1077 The Bronx to see what we're up to on air behind the scenes on Instagram at 1077 The Bronx and on TikTok at 1077 The Bronx WRRC. After you follow the Bronx on social media, sport the Bronx on and off campus. Gear up for the summer by shopping the Bronx General Store, from short sleeve tees and polos to insulated drinkware for your acai refresher. Go to 1077thebronx.com/shop the to make sure your campus fashion statement. We'll be back with more What's Next Sports after these underwriting announcements. While you're waiting for the return of my show, Don't forget to like and follow The Bronx on 1077 The Bronx and on TikTok on 1077 The Bronx, WRRC.
I may be getting older, but I still like to have my lunch packed with love.
Grow up!
last I don't want to say last, yeah, last game, there were only, I think, off the bench, it was Mitch, Clarkson, Shamit, and I think that's it. There's probably one more, but it was like an 8-9 man rotation, and that's important because Alvarado didn't play at all. Diawara didn't play really at all. It was just those 8 guys, and I know playoff rotations shrink a little bit, but that's like an interesting tidbit because if we could get like good production out of these guys without really having to dip into, you know, Alvarado, who could be streaky, and Diawara, who's a rookie, I feel very comfortable. I'm interested to see how that adjusts in the next round. The Celtics are a little bit deeper than the Hawks, and they have better bigs. So I'm interested to see if Alvarado would like, and if his nastiness will come into factor a little bit more next round. But yeah, that's it. I'm excited for the draft. I'll have a draft reaction next week on Monday. I'm hoping the Giants do good things, but thank you for listening. We'll be back next Monday at 2. Stay tuned for more of the biggest hits and best variety on the Princeton's Reviews, number 18 best college radio station, 3-time 2026 IBS Media Award winner, and 5-time NAB Marconi Radio Award nominee for College Radio Station of the Year, 107.7 The Bronx. Okay. Thanks. Have a good day.
From the studios of Rider University.